I'm going to present it from my perspective and from give you some Pomeranian examples, and please do ask me questions if you feel like it. But first of all, I wanted to share a little personal story. I'm really sorry I can't be in Riga today. I have a karmic connection to Riga because my grandfather was taken to Riga as a forced laborer in 1945 when he was 17, and he was telling me always about Riga, and I think his example, it's not his picture, it's just example how he could look, but he was always telling me, of course he was there because of division imposing politics of war and totalitarianism, but he was always telling me about how people from Riga actually not only saved him many times, but also lifted his spirits. So for me, Riga is an important place, and I'm really sorry we can't be together. You already said something about me, so I will just move on. Thank you very much. So what I would like to raise today is things that I discussed with Liva a little bit before this conference, this meeting. Can you see it, or do you see? I don't know.
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Okay.
No worries.
Things which what I want to discuss today is the circumstances in which cultural and social activities are taking place in Poland, and mainly in Pomerania. I really want to talk about Pomerania because this is where I'm based. First of all, of course, well, you can't not talk about identity, cultural activities of this region without seeing this in a perspective. And of course, the last 100 years were really tormented in this part of Europe, and I'm sure all of us understand it pretty well. I think the really important aspect, of course, it was the change of population. So the people who used to live here, in large numbers, were either killed or left, and the population, Polish population from nowadays Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, were forcefully or unforcefully brought to this region and mixed with existing communities, mainly with Polish and Kashubian communities. And of course, because of the communism rule and Soviet imposed communist rule, the new society was built on a different paradigm. The important, from my perspective today, element and aspect of this imposed rule was keeping control over the society through keeping people apart from each other and dividing them. The moment when new Polish society managed to overcome the divisions, they managed to get strength, get empowered, and create the overarching solidarity movement, which gathered at its peak 10 million participants, but also was an important element to overcome this regime. And the last photograph which I have placed here is a photograph of the longtime Mayor Paweł Adamowicz, who was assassinated 1.5 years ago due to his political engagement. And I placed his photograph here because he was the person who created a long-term policy of developing social capital in Gdansk. And I believe, and this is my experience, that we are still developing this. So he was the person who gave me Putnam's book about social capital. So yeah, it was an important time. Generally, social capital in Poland is quite low, and we in Poland are totally ambitious. So for us, seeing Poland on the lowest is really heartbreaking, and we are really not very good in social capital. As you can see, general social capital, so the belief among people that you can generally trust people is very low in Poland, although different data shows different outcomes. Still, this is an overarching characteristic of our society. Also, the NGO membership is very low, it's only 10%, so it's very rare to have people part of, engaged in local non-governmental organization or formally volunteering. And one of the theories that tries to explain it or tried to explain it is the thesis of sociological vacuum created by Stefan Nowak, sometimes called social vacuum, which is also sometimes thought to be more accurate. And this is the theory which is suggestive, quite controversial and still discussed. Says that the characteristic of Polish society is that we identify strongly with two dimensions of Polish society, two types of structure. One is the primary group, so family, so we identify strongly with our family, and the second is our nation, but much less identification is with the intermediary structures, so it's local community, local organizations. And I'm not sure if it's still true, but I think in many instances, especially in urban communities, we do struggle with this, with creating trust towards something that is outside of my family. So maybe not as strong as Nowak said, but still I think we're experiencing this. I think that the big change in Polish society was the Local Government Act, which took really long time to bear fruit, but it did at the end change slightly the situation and placed local officials at the top, having a top rate of trust in the society, so among institutions. So something has changed. Important is also our membership in the European Union. This is another moment when things have changed. Now, the division imposing politics is something that we experience and observe depending on which country you live in. I think in Poland it's very strong right now, but you can also observe it in the United States and other countries. So I will just briefly say, of course, we observe hardcore polarization. It's very much us and them. It's very much my group, your group. Unfortunate tribalism. So it's not my opponent. It's my. I'm not trying to overrule my opponent, but I'm trying to destroy my enemy. So this creates a lot of negative energy and dynamic and bias, and also destroys the trust that we've been trying to build over the years. Another thing is that, and it's very saddening, is that both sides of this polarized conflict tend to tolerate illiberal, authoritarian, or undemocratic means to overrule or to gain power. So this is very dangerous for democracy and for representation and for nuanced realities that the society is experiencing. So it's a very black and white reality. And I have, in recent years and in recent months especially, spoken with people who stand out of line, you could say, or for many reasons. I was doing it as a part of a research at work, which is not yet publicized, but I will just share with you what I have encountered. First of all, I was really struck how the society punishes people who are out of line. And sometimes the out of line means that you actually do express your views. So say, you say, I am a feminist in the public sphere, or things that are not to do with your views, because maybe you speak Russian in public space, and there is a lot of Russian-speaking migrants in Poland now, and I was talking to them as well. And those groups are often punished for being who they are. Of course, we also observe enormous aggression towards LGBTQ plus communities. And majority of people who I spoke to at least experienced negative comments towards this. Many experience aggressive behavior, shouting in public spaces. Some also had their property destroyed, their offices attacked. We also had situations and incidents of racial abuse in public transport, and of course, assassination of mayor, which I already mentioned. So the punishment is horrific and horrifying for entering a public sphere. And also this means that these situations are being used also in the dynamics of this polarized politics. So the nuances are not being heard. Very often the reported situations are at the extreme, but the less, it's not really less, it's never less scandalous situations are not reported, are not being heard, and people don't see them. It all looks nice and okay. Still, some people do not want to play into this tribal politics, as you all know, and you probably have seen it, experienced it. You may be one of them. And people do want to and look for places where they can meet without having to either express the political views or express them, but not in political terms, where they can talk about their values, their interests, and not necessarily in this political language of gaining influence. And this is the picture I'm showing you. This is the European Solidarity Center invitation to roundtable dinner. It says, let's be together. And this is one of the initiatives. I don't know if you've heard about. The roundtable is an important element of Polish history, because it actually ended and ended the communism and started transformation. And this European Solidarity Center created a new roundtable which is placed in the outside of the center, and it's used for different activities for the community. And it's actually very funny, because in the same time when this table was created in the same day and actually week. We were celebrating the victory of solidarity, and we had politicians from two sides, opposing sides, marching around this place, which is really important for us, near the European Solidarity Center, the Three Crosses. And they didn't even want to, they didn't manage to meet. I don't want to say they didn't want to, because some of them wanted to, but for the reasons which we can imagine, they did not meet. They actually went either at different times to the same places, or they just ignored each other. So in my experience, there is a third party. There is a third party in this tribal reality, and the third party wants to focus on togetherness, on the nuance, on being together without the divisions. Yeah, and how can you do it? So people who engage in this movement, because I think it is a movement, when you speak to them, they treat community as a developmental strategy, as a goal. Very often it's a local community. And why is it good? I'm going to just check my time. Okay. First of all, the locality and the community gives comfort of actually taking them all, taking everyone. So you just take a map, you just make a circle and say, this is my community, I'm going to work with this community. Of course, it's not as simple as that due to urban and not only urban realities, but this is basically the concept. You just take whoever is in the area and invite them, and fights and tries to find whatever connects them, and focus on the nuances, the histories, often oral histories, memories, psychogeography, everything that allows us to see beyond the black and white political view. An important element of this is also the facilitation of self-expression. This is something that you already mentioned after we asked you the question, that give people voice, or maybe not give them voice, but just stop talking probably, and give them space, or leave, vacate. I don't know how to say it without being too paternalistic. But yeah, make sure that people feel good to express themselves and have impact on the surroundings and control over what's happening. Therefore, you give, or we enable social interaction, which is so important in civic engagement. Social interaction, which also which takes into account other people's space and feelings and needs, which is crucial for active civil society. And very often these activities create new identities, which can therefore create new networks. And sometimes these identities are based on locality, so maybe it's Biskupia Górka or Rzesz, or another name of a district where they work. But sometimes this new identity is built on what people are interested in. In Gdansk, we have, and I think in Pomerania too, we have this strong will to encourage people to identify with the concept of being social activist. And also, it's not like people are not active in the sphere of politics, but they perceive it as a different politics. They retract from openly speaking about their political alignment or political banners, but they speak through values. So especially when I spoke to the female activists or feminists who became local activists, they were saying, well, we're not pretending that we're not feminists, but we talk through the we use the language of equality. We just don't use the word feminist because we don't want to create the division. We prefer to speak about the equality and empowerment because this builds bridges and encourages discussion and not fear and conflict. And of course, this type of activity in the community is a long-term engagement. And I have 3 examples for you. Example number 1 is Solidarity Every Day in European Solidarity Center, which some of you probably have heard about. Solidarity Center is a municipality institution, cultural institution run mainly by the municipality. Solidarity Every Day, it's one of its program. The aim of this program is to learn from the experience of the first solidarity, the solidarity movement, the values, the togetherness. It is a cultural institution, but element of a program of a cultural institutions, but they work with the community, not the audience. And for me, this is a very important difference. The Solidarity Every Day is not creating programs without element of co-creation, or even actually huge content is created by the users. As long it is run on the paradigm of an open institution, so it means that there is space provided for users to just create their own program, projects, events. For example, I don't know, film program by the local migrant community, film exchange program, or adaptation to climate change project workshops, things like this. The openness of the institution is not only about co-creation, but also it's very organizational. It means that Solidarity Every Day aspires to accommodate the needs of people who want to create it. It means that you can actually access the building even outside of the opening hours if you just make sure that you have the flag, green light from the facilitators of Solidarity Every Day. One of the projects that is run there is Cześć, which is a civic engagement program for new migrants. It's very successful. It was at the beginning created as an offer of civic engagement in the new city, but after a few editions, it is now changed, so the migrants created themselves. And I must say that it has a huge impact on the social environment in Gdansk. And I work with migrant communities across Pomerania in different bigger and smaller towns, cities, villages. And the access to social network of migrants in Gdansk through this environment created with the help of Cześć is really easy. It's really easy to find them, for example, for research. they share, they're happy to network, to link you. And also we have new leaders and we hear their voice. So it's very important. Another example is neighborhood center homes and clubs, which are in Gdansk, organized by the citizens through non-governmental organizations. Their intention is to create local centers and bring together people of different ages, paths. It's been running in Gdansk now for 12 years. It has changed slightly to encourage new players in the network. I don't know, but I don't know, it might be somebody from the network here present, so correct me, but I think we have over 25 now of those centers. I think it's an interesting example with regards to intergenerational aspect, which Jonas mentioned in the previous presentation. And also for me, it was incredibly interesting to speak to in recent times in my, I was doing interviews with organizers from Stowarzyszenie Waga, which I give you the link to.
Monika, it's your time.
Oh, is it?
Not hear the bell.
All right, okay. Oh my God.
So you can finish up.
Yeah, I'm finished. I'm sorry. Thank you for giving me a shout. Just to cut it short, they are those feminists. Stowarzyszenie Waga are those feminists who started creating local community as an answer to the divisiveness of the politics. Now, ending it, what I see as a positive, just last slide, I think this sort of activities do increase social capital and develop networks and do give voice to excluded communities, for example, migrants or women. But on the negative side, it's incredibly draining for the leaders because it's not respected, I think, and not so much in Gdansk maybe, but outside of Gdansk certainly. And it's sad that representatives of this new perspectives don't want to become politicians, because this means that the divisions will continue to grow. I don't know what's your thoughts about it. I hope it's not too obvious what I said. Thank you very much for taking time to listen to me, and
thank you, Monika.
bye.
So
Wow.
what's the first example that comes in your mind when explaining empowering people through culture? So you can see the results, right? Perfect. So as we can see, empathy, involvement in the community is leading, but of course, a lot of the answers also include what you mentioned as giving the voice or shutting up and letting other people talk. So looking at the answers, do you have any comments, something extraordinary that you see popping up or something that is obvious?
I think, I think we are more or less on the same page with what we said. I hope it's not too obvious what I said, because we seem to be, as I say, on the same page. But I think it's really interesting what I notice is creating narrative and explore local identity. I think these two things are really interesting, because they require, especially creating narrative, require a lot of, as you say here, somebody said, intelligence and also emotional intelligence of how to create new narratives without shutting people off, shutting people down. Yeah, well, thank you very much.
You can also write questions in the chat section.
Shall I say something?
There is a possibility that Monika won't answer them in time, but yeah, Monika can comment them also in the chat section. Also, I have one question that I did not want to miss is what has changed and how you see the further on activity regarding your topic after the election of the new president in
New
Poland.
president of Poland?
Yes. Have you seen that, or what is your opinion? Will your topic be more relevant, or will your topic become a daily agenda, or?
Well, I think regardless of who is the president, this topic is incredibly important. And I didn't have a chance to say it in this presentation, but I also work with rural communities, which not always or rarely, sometimes are not in the opposition. And I think the strength of this approach is about actually sitting at this table, drinking coffee together and finding common elements. So whoever is in power, I don't know, maybe you've heard, Polish national anthem is "We're not fallen until we are still alive." So it gives a lot of hope, but it also says something about togetherness. So as long as we're building togetherness and we're opposing the culture of division, we just have to do it. I mean, you don't need money to do it. You don't need money to bring people for a coffee and cake.
All right, thank you, Monika. Thanks for your very in-depth presentation. And if people have questions, please ask them on chat. And I very hope that Monika will be around for at least a couple of minutes to answer some of the questions. If you don't mind, you can also share your contacts, and then probably there's a possibility that people can write you regarding some other projects they want to work, or some other questions they do not want to talk publicly about.
I'm to be honest, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Facebook under Monika Chabior, so please do contact me if you want to.
Right.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm going to come to Riga soon.
We very hope everybody will come to Riga very soon.